Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Raptor Queens podcast, the first ever all-women podcast covering the Toronto Raptors. My name is Sarah Khalil, and I am here with my other Queens of the North, Esty Magic.
Hi.
And Allison Hope.
Hi, everybody.
And hi, nice to have you both here. Sonali Sharma unfortunately can't be with us today, but if you miss her, you can catch her on last week's episode of South of the Six podcast with Adam Corsair, where she covers her, where they together covered their top 10 Raptors moment on a very, very heartwarming, just like uplifting podcast that will just make you fall in love with this Raptors team all over again and relive some really, really good moments of the season. So definitely be sure to check that out. And thanks, Adam, for having Sonali on your podcast. It was really wonderful to listen to. So on today's podcast, we have some juicy hypothetical situations that we are going to dissect and break down. And then we will find out later if our hypothetical situations are true or not. But in any event, we're going to talk about that. It's going to be really, really interesting. And to start us off, I just want to give a quick update. The league, NBA, all sports actually, obviously, is still shut down. No games are being played. Professional sports leagues everywhere are still trying to figure out exactly how they're going to deal with this, when or if seasons are going to resume. And everyone's just doing their best in a very uncertain and unknown situation, and there aren't really a lot of answers right now. So that's kind of what's happening around the league. We can get a little bit more into some details a little bit later in the podcast, but for now, we're actually just going to jump right in and have some discussions. So one of the things that's been happening over the last 2 weeks is TSN has been replaying the Raptors championship games and all of the playoff games from last year. And in watching those games, we're getting to see the Raptors team of old. We're reminded about Kawhi Leonard and how important he was to the team. And of course, we can't help but compare to this year's team. And so one of the questions that we are going to ask is, could the Raptors actually repeat a championship this year with the team they have and without Kawhi Leonard? And why this came up is because as we watch these games and we get reminded about how important Kawhi Leonard was, and we see that obviously he's not here this year, is the team good enough to win without him? And can the Raptors win without a Kawhi-like superstar and improved enough? If the rest of the Raptors improved enough, is this team good enough to fill the gap that was left when Kawhi went to the Clippers? So those are the questions on the table. Who'd like to kick us off?
I mean, rewatching the championship run, like the Philly game this week, you know, you really appreciate again what just an incredible player Kawhi is. So are we better this year? I think the team has transitioned. We've seen Fred sort of mature more as a number one guard. There's less dribbling out of the shot clock. There's definitely more decision making. Kyle I think the championship has imbued him with a lot of confidence, and it really shows. Pascal has continued with his development. Maybe he's not where we thought he would be at this point, but I mean, there's no playbook. This is, you know, he's doing things that a player of his age hasn't done in development terms. I mean, at this point in his career. Serge has had a fantastic year and he's continued with his development. I think this is probably his best year as a Raptor. We didn't have OG last year, and he, as far as I'm concerned, is continuing his upward trajectory. Pat McCaw, he's basically treading water. And Mark, we know what we're getting with Mark. I think he still has gas in the tank. And now we have Terrence Davis. Now, I'm not saying in a Game 7 scenario he'd be getting playoff minutes, but he's kind of a tantalizing piece of the future. So I think on paper, I think we're a better team than we were last year, but we don't have Kawhi. So I'm curious what you guys think. I I don't see us making a deep run if the league were to restart. I can't see us going to the finals. But my views have definitely changed, and I'm a little bit more positive about this team than I was in the beginning. So what do you guys think?
So for me, I think I'm similar in the sense that I have become more optimistic about the team over time. But definitely, yeah, some recency bias is happening in terms of watching the old series and remembering how great Kawhi was and how clutch he was. And one thing that's kind of weird as well is like watching Norm and Fred not be as good. It's like I've gotten so used to them playing at a certain level, so it's weird to see them like at a lower level, especially in that series, because that wasn't one of Fred's better series. But for me, yeah, I think that I don't think that this team can do what last year's team did. And one reason also is because I fear that we're already playing our best while the other teams can still turn it up a notch. You know what I mean? Like, for example, and I have these two players in my head because we're going to talk about them later, hint, hint. Like, for example, playoff Kawhi is very different from regular season Kawhi. Playoff LeBron is very different from regular season LeBron. You know what I mean? So I feel that's one thing I worry about us is like, are we already showing what we can do? And then when the playoffs come, it's like, what's the next gear for Pascal Siakam? You know, we saw Kyle already kick it into next gear just this season. You know what I mean? Like, but can he kick it even further? I don't think so. I think what we're seeing right now from him is his best, to be honest, because it's just so good. It's like, how can you do even better than that? I think for us, really, what'll happen is like, I've figured out from watching these series over again, I'm a little bit ahead of you guys because they're showing it on League Pass, by the way, is that Norm and Fred are our X factors, I think. I think how far we can go depends on the two of them. I think that we know what we're gonna get from Kyle. He's a great leader. He can score in the clutch. Pascal, we know what we're gonna get from him. He still did pretty well in the playoffs as Kawhi Leonard's Robin. I think Serge is at the point now where he's had enough experience and he's developed his game so much that I think he'll be pretty consistent. But I think it's really Norm and Fred. To me, those are the biggest differences, other than not having Kawhi, obviously. But those are the other two players that are the biggest differences between this season and last season. And also, even though Fred did play well, obviously, in the finals, this is our time to see him play in a larger variety of games in the playoffs at that level. So it's still kind of new or different for him as well. So yeah, so to answer your question, Sarah, is I don't think this team can win it all like last year's team. I do think though, because I think I said their ceiling was the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think that that's their ceiling anymore. I think their ceiling is the finals. But like I said, a lot of things have to click. Like Norm has to play well every series. Fred has to play well every series. You know, we can't have Pascal struggling. We need consistent performance from Pascal and Kyle. And then hopefully some of the other guys will step up. But yeah, ultimately, I'm still afraid of the same thing I've been afraid of all year, which is in the clutch and not having a closer. And so that's the biggest difference between last year's team and this year's team.
Okay, so really interesting takes from both of you. So as I was watching these games, there was my instinctual feeling about it, which is, man, this team has really, really improved. And I wanted to go see if my instincts were actually right about this. So I did some statistical comparisons of last year's playoff team compared to this year's regular season team and their individual stats. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of those with you guys and then maybe break it down a little bit. And to our listeners, I have to apologize. There's a siren that is just repeatedly going off in the background in my area. And I think I think you're just gonna have to maybe deal with that. It's just going off every few seconds here. So in any event, so first of all, let's look at Norm. Okay, in the playoffs last season, he averaged 6.5 points a game. Regular season, he's averaging 16.5 points per game. So right off the bat, that's 10 extra points. So SE, to your point that I think Norm would be an X factor in the playoffs, yes, I think he's one of the X factors. Also, Fred VanVleet, He averaged only 8 points in the playoffs last year, and this season he's averaging 17.6 points. So again, that's offensive production like +9, and so together you've got 19 points with these guys. So that's Fred. And then there's OG, and we didn't even have OG last year in the playoffs. But so I just looked at his regular season performance. So last year he was averaging 7 points a game. This year he's averaging 10.7. And so I think we can count on OG to bring a little bit more offense. I also think that OG and the entire Raptors team generally is just, they're still just so excellent defensively. And so what Kawhi brought defensively, OG is capable of providing. And also Fred actually leads in steals on the team, which maybe is surprising because everyone talks about OG's defense, but
it is.
You're surprised, Allison?
Fred,
yeah, I am.
Fred actually is one of the top steals leader in the league, not just the Raptors. So
yeah,
been doing really well.
Yeah, and like again, it looks like just instinctually like the Raptors team is really cohesive defensively, especially when they're on. One of the things that really surprised me is Serge's statistics are actually less. Like he's averaging, points production from the playoffs. He was only 9.4 last year, and now he's 16. So I just scratched what I said about Serge being less. But so if you put all of those increases in offensive production together, they actually do come to the 30.5 points per game that Kawhi Leonard was bringing in the playoffs. So what do you guys think based on numbers? Does that alter anything for you?
So for me, that doesn't alter anything at all, to be honest with you. And it's not because like I know what the team can do, but the playoffs are different from the regular season. And even on defense, I'm not worried about us at all. I think we'll be, such a high level. I think we're on point with defense. It's just the offense that you have to, okay, you don't have to, but like in the clutch, there has to be somebody who can step up and knock down, clutch baskets, make key baskets in the fourth with all the fans and cheering and booing or whatever if you're in an away game, and the playoff pressure if it's a game 7. And I just don't see anybody other than Kyle having that composure to I think they can have moments, but consistently, like the way that, like if you watch this Philly series in game 2 specifically, where the Raptors scoring is just like terrible. Outside of Kawhi, it's terrible. And the fact that we had him that we could keep going to, and it just was like, it was a situation where it was like every player except Kawhi was playing bad. And it was like, that literally that scenario, watching it in this game 2 is the exact scenario I see in my head of my biggest fear of this team in the playoffs, except this time there's no Kawhi.
So basically it's just that there's no proven player on the Raptors that is going to be the player we can count on for offensive production in the playoffs.
Well, I wouldn't say completely unproven because I think Kyle is still the most proven, but at the level of a superstar player, no. Sorry. I think they can. I think they can have clutch moments. That's why I said I still think they can get to the finals, because at the end of the day, you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes the ball might bounce the right way. A player could get injured. You never know, it could happen. So they can get to the finals, or Nick Nurse might come up with a fantastic coaching scheme and help them get through a series. You know what I mean? So I'm not ruling them out. I'm just thinking about the odds. And I just, like I said, I just think that, a closer is very important.
So as far as like, that's an interesting compilation of numbers that you put together there, Sarah. But I do think that may not translate to the playoffs. And kind of Essie's point, we're playing good defense, really good defense. How much better can we play on defense? I mean, this team is, I think, number 2 rated defense in the league, if I'm not mistaken. So how do we play any better? And every other team's going to be turning it up in the playoffs. So that worries me a little bit.
Yeah, we're the number one ranked defensive team in points against, and number two, second to Milwaukee in field goal percentage against. And but Essie, I think you also just brought up a good point about Nick Nurse as probably the coach of the year, or at least a top contender for coach of the year. And in a 7-game series, what could Nick do to swing the odds in favor of the Raptors? What we have seen is that the Raptors are very, very capable of shutting down superstars. We had Joel Embiid held to 0 points. Kawhi Leonard held to 13 points on what was it? Was it 13 points?
I think it was 13, and then I think LeBron was 12, and Damian Lillard was 9.
Exactly. And so what we can see is that the Raptors can neutralize superstars on opposing teams. And that's an interesting factor that might show up in the playoffs.
But depending who we match up against, you're right, we had great success with that. But against Houston, they nailed us. I mean, sure, we trapped Harden, and he scored, I don't know, I want to say 16 or 17 points, but they just nailed us with corner threes. They found the open man, like he found the open man out of the trap, and it was just corner threes all night. So I think depending on, if whoever the matchup is, if they can pass out of the double, then we've got a big problem.
And also too, it's still, to me, it's not even the defense. Like, I think it's the offense and the lack of being able to have transition baskets. A lot of our points, like the Raptors are one of the fastest teams in the league, and a lot of their points come from transition baskets. And if they're not able to get that when things slow down in the playoffs, because teams are getting back on defense faster and it becomes more of a half-court game, then it's the offense problem again. And that's another thing too, is if you look at the Raptors offense in a container, and we never do this and you shouldn't do this, but if you actually look at the Raptors offense in a container compared to the rest of the league, they are like average. They're like 14th or 15th in terms of offensive production in total, right? It's obviously when you compare to their defense and you take their net rating and then they rank higher, right? But in terms of, if you actually look at their offense, it's not that strong. And so it's the offense that I'm worried about. It's not the defense I'm so confident in.
We also have to factor in injuries though. I mean, how much do those numbers mean given the injuries that we've had all year? It's just been injury after injury. So, I think we have to be a little bit careful with that.
With what?
Just as far as like 14th ranked offense. But I mean, given what we've had to deal with this year, if we had a full complement, I think that number would be a lot higher.
I don't think so, to be honest, because the Raptors scoring is still very balanced. Like, even if you look at how many players, not how many players, but how many players average over 10 points? I believe it's 6 or 7 of them average over 10 points. So no matter who's playing, they still always have very balanced scoring. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, a certain player was injured and he would have contributed 20 something points, right? It's still a very balanced type of scoring. They pass a lot, they swing the ball a lot. So they're a very team-oriented team. I don't think that would have changed anything. We don't have players who are hungry to, get average a triple-double, or James Harden who's like constantly, the amount he scores is a top thing on his mind. Like, they don't have selfish players. I don't think that would have made a big difference, to be honest. I think the reason why we get away with our offense not being as strong, and it's not just that too, Allison, it's also the field goal percentage as well, which is average. But the reason why we get away with it is because our defense is so good, and our threes, we're also one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the league. So if you're making a lot of threes, that balances out you not making as many twos or whichever. So I don't agree with you on that.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate what you're saying, Essie. When I think, I forget who it was that came back after injury, and they were a little bit rusty for the first few games. So, I mean, there's definitely an impact after coming back from injury. So, and we've had so many injuries. I don't know, it'd be interesting to see numbers on that, but it's, again, all hypothetical, right?
Well, yeah, because we'll never know because they were injured, right? So we won't know.
Yeah.
really got to see them play full. But I mean, this is just in theory, both our views, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I want to throw one more factor into the mix because this is, I think, the intuitive piece that we're all picking up on. Like, we can look at the Raptors from last year and compare them to this year and see that all of our players have matured, right? Like, this is just so obvious that the level of confidence that they actually became winners in the course of the playoffs last year when we watched them in Orlando and we watched them in Philadelphia, and then it's really again in after the Philadelphia series and throughout the Milwaukee series that they really became confident that they could take it all. At least that's what it looked like to me as an observer, and that mentality has completely carried through into this season. Like, I actually think we're dealing with players who are different mentally this year than they were going into the playoffs last year. So what do you guys think in terms of the maturity factor and the championship DNA factor, that these guys just see themselves as winners? So what impact does that have in terms of increasing the odds that they actually take a championship or are able to win the championship? Thoughts?
I think you can definitely see the confidence. I mean, they have the mantle of the championship, and they've played like it all year. And it almost looks to me like Kyle Lowry's just playing such a good game right now, and I think a lot of that is the confidence from having won. You know, like I said, I don't think that, you know, if the season were to come back, that, you know, I just think that the Clippers are too good. If that's, you know, but if we don't win, we're gonna go down trying. Like, this is, you know, this is an amazing team.
Yeah, I think you can definitely see the growth in them mentally and the confidence that they have. And I think that is what gives us a chance to get to the finals. Like I mentioned, it's that championship DNA, it's their defense. And yeah, we've all seen how much they've grown between last year and this year, and how much more confident they are. And you know what would be cool too to see? It's like I almost wish we could, and this wouldn't happen because it's like impossible, and just, you know, salary wise, I don't think it would happen anymore anyway. But like, let's just say for the sake of argument that Kawhi Leonard only signed a 1+1 last summer as a free agent, and he went to the Clippers for 1 year and he decided, oh, you know, I made a mistake, I'm going back to Toronto, I want to be the king of the North again. I would love to see how Kawhi plays with this team now that is so mentally different, and we see the difference in Norm and Fred, a team that's had that time to be kind of forced to develop more, to like prove the, you know, the doubters wrong. It would be so interesting to see plopping Kawhi, like just dropping him into this team now that has changed so much since or evolved so much since he left.
Well, Leslie, you just made me think, like, when you look back to Game 6, who were the architects of that win in Game 6? It was Fred, Kyle, Serge, Pascal. Like, Kawhi very much played a secondary role in that game. So, I mean, that was the team that we're watching now. Those guys that stepped up big in Game 6.
Golden State against the game.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that for sure. It's more just the consistency, really. That's the difference between, you know, all-stars and not role players, is that consistency, right? Because role players can have big games too, right? And so if they were, now this year, we've been seeing them consistently play at that higher level. And so, I don't know, I think it would just be really interesting to see how that happens. Because then there's also the argument that, and I know everyone says, oh, we're doing just as good without Kawhi, but then again, it's like, would they have developed as much if he left? No, because they would be doing that thing where, and all teams do this, where this just pass it to the star player and you know, let him go to work, or while the other players are kind of standing around. So I just think it's kind of catch-22, because obviously we would have wanted Kawhi to stay, but it's also been really, you know, amazing and exciting to see how much the players have developed without him.
Well, and Allison, your Game 6 comment, I actually don't think that they would have had that game without Kawhi on their team, both developing them throughout the playoffs. Like, I think Kawhi is the reason they became, like, had that championship mentality. Like, he came in having already won a championship and with a mindset that was just win. That was it. And,
Oh, for sure. For
right?
sure. But just, just that particular game, it just occurred to me, like he kind of took a back seat to those other four.
Yeah, that's true for sure. It wasn't one of his better games, to be honest.
It still had to assume it would be.
Yeah, but also another factor too is that he was also being that series, he was double teamed more, I believe, than the previous series. And especially because I think Philly didn't double team him as much at all. And then Milwaukee did more. And then at Golden State, it was a lot of double teaming. So that also opened up the floor for those other guys. So that's another factor to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so just to actually get our questions answered, it sounds like both of you are no, that the Raptors would not actually win the championship this year with this team without a superstar.
Yeah, but I don't think you said yours, and that's not fair.
I just want to make sure I got your guys' takes.
Okay, go ahead. We're no fence sitters on this. You guys had a fence sitting moment in the last podcast when I was and I was like, yep, if I was there, I would not have allowed that.
Don't worry. I'm not going to fence sit on this one. I think it's possible that the Raptors win a championship again. I think, to your point, Essie, like maybe at one point, I always thought they could go to the finals. That's never been a question for me. I always thought that the NBA finals were a real possibility. And now that we're sitting here having this conversation about could they actually win, I do think, yes, they could. I'm not sure if the odds are necessarily in their favor. It might depend on who they match up against, which is the next topic we're going to talk about. But I'm going to go with, yes, it's possible. The Raptors could repeat this year. Oh, Allison.
No, I mean, I'm not surprised, but it would be so great if you were right.
I'm pulling on your heartstrings, right?
Yes, but the pessimist in me always wins out.
We'll see. Maybe the Raptors can win you over too. Okay, so let's move into the secondary topic, which is, okay, we're making an assumption here. We're going to be flat about this. The assumption is that out of the West will be either the Clippers or the Lakers. That's what we're doing. So the question is, who do the Raptors match up better with, the Clippers or the Lakers? Essie, why don't you start this one? I know that you're an LA fan.
So this is going to surprise some people, this answer, because I am a little bit of a Lakers fan too. Just a little, not a lot. Actually, I should clarify that because I feel like people think I'm more of a Lakers fan than I am, but I'm actually like, literally I'm like 90% Raptors fan, 10% Lakers fan. So it's not really like as lopsided as people think. But anyway, well, lopsided in favor of the Raptors it is. I think that the Raptors would actually fare better against the Lakers than the Clippers because, and even though I would prefer the Lakers to beat the Clippers, I think the Clippers have a better chance of actually winning. Just because one thing I really worry about with the Lakers is that the moment LeBron James goes to the bench, it's like their offense gets really stagnant. He essentially is their primary playmaker. Rondo is not playing that well. And so it's like, whereas like the Clippers are so much more well-balanced. Their scoring is stronger. Like even with the Lakers, after Anthony Davis and LeBron, you have Kyle Kuzma, who I believe averages, is it 11 points or something like that? 12 points. And it's like such a big drop off from Anthony Davis and LeBron to Kyle Kuzma. And then the next scorer is like 8 points or 9 points. Whereas like the Clippers, they have such a strong scoring force. Kawhi Leonard averages 26 points, and you have Paul George, 21 points. And then the biggest like threats, in my opinion, that really switch the dynamic, is Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, who are both averaging almost 20 points each coming off the bench. And so I think that the Raptors would have a better chance against the Lakers, just because the Lakers are just, unfortunately, I don't think they're as good as the Clippers. And it sucks because I want the Lakers to win. I think, don't get me wrong, I still think that playoff LeBron is magical, and I think he could, do something amazing and they could still win. But I think if we're talking about odds and being realistic, I think that the Lakers are the easier team to beat than the Clippers.
Interesting. All right. Allison, what do you say?
So looking at the Lakers, I think they have a relatively weak backcourt. And just looking at the names, it's kind of like players just pulled off the scrap heap, like Avery Bradley, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Rajon Rondo, who's kind of getting late in his career, Danny Green, shooting guard, Dion Waiters. They have to keep him out of the gummies. So it's kind of a weird hodgepodge. Danny Green, 40% three-point shooter, but last year he played 20 minutes a game for us. He started, and we really relied on his defensive acumen through the year, but his play fell off sharply in the playoffs. Like, his three-point shooting was abysmal. So I'm just wondering how much they're going to get out of him in the playoffs. LeBron, actually, I looked, and he's averaging, like, he's kind of a de facto point guard as well, a career high 11 assists this year. And then their front court for me is kind of troublesome. I mean, Dwight Howard, his 16th season, he started out really well, and there was a lot of talk about, Dwight Howard's finally found his fit somewhere. But his numbers have fallen off a little bit too. And then JaVale McGee, again, 16th season. He doesn't cover ground very well. He's not a mobile center. And just to go back, Dwight Howard, like, he used to be a fearsome rim protector, and that element has kind of gone from his game. And then they have Markieff Morris that I can't remember if they acquired him at the trade deadline, or it's kind of a weird thing. The Clippers also have one of the Morris brothers, and I know one of them was acquired at the deadline.
So Marcus traded for, and then Markieff was signed off waivers, I believe, or bought out or something like that.
Yes, you have the West Coast intel there, Essie. It's hard for me to keep up with everything on the West Coast. Just looking at the Clippers, their backcourt's pretty interesting. They have another Detroit Piston from the scrap heap, Reggie Jackson. But Lou Williams, that guy can sure light it up. And then Patrick Beverley, I guess he's a player that everyone hates to play against. So I agree. I think that the Clippers are more formidable. Montrezl Harrell, I'm a big fan of him. He just brings the energy. I think mostly plays as a center. He's definitely undersized, but he plays bigger than his 6'7". And it's a whole different look, him at center, and then when they sub Zubac in, because he's a 7-footer, and he plays that way. Clippers are definitely a younger team. I think they have a better coach in Doc Rivers, and they have a proven player, Kawhi Leonard, in do or die situations. And maybe I'm accustomed to Paul George from the Eastern Conference, but Paul George, and maybe he's evolved as a player, and I just don't watch him as much in the Western Conference, but I'm just not that impressed with Paul George. So they definitely have a better backcourt, the Clippers, and younger and more mobile centers. So if we were going to face someone in the championship, I think I would rather it be the Lakers.
Okay. So two things. First of all, on the Paul George thing, just generally, I just don't think that Kawhi has a better partner in Paul George than he would have had with Pascal Siakam, just in terms of, like, a 1-2 punch. So there's that.
For sure.
Right? Yeah. And then, yeah, interesting that you guys are both leaning towards the Clippers. I'll go through my thoughts in a minute, but the Raptors have never beat LeBron in a playoff series. Have we forgotten?
No, I would rather play the Lakers. I think the Clippers are a better team, so I would rather play the Lakers.
I know. That's what I'm saying. But don't forget, the Raptors have never actually beat LeBron, and in this case, that would mean beating the Lakers in a playoff series. Maybe you guys just
I think
of them.
Yeah, I see what
I
you're.
don't know. I think you have to throw all that out. Like, this is a different team now. We got to the mountaintop. This is a whole different mindset. And I hate to say this, DeMar's gone. Love the guy, but he didn't play defense. This is a different team.
Oh my goodness, Allison, you sound like an optimist.
No, no, that doesn't change how I feel things, but this is for sure a different team, a different mindset. So I think that whole LeBronto thing, that's water under the bridge now.
Oh, I think you speak for all of Toronto. Essie, were you going to say something in response to beating LeBron?
No, I think the way Allison answered it is a really good way she answered it. And to be honest, I'm way over the LeBronto thing. Also, I'm like a major LeBron fan. So it's like, I'm way over that. So I do think it would be nice on the Raptors side though, if they did, beat him. I think that'd be cool from their perspective. But at the same time, I really like LeBron too. So, but you know what? I don't even want to get into it, but because like ultimately I want the Raptors to win, but I'm just saying I could see the fairy tale story from both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because if the Raptors were to beat the Clippers or the Lakers, there's an amazing story in both cases. So, okay, so I'm just looking strictly at the games that were played this season so far. And unfortunately, we haven't got to see the Raptors play the Lakers the second time. In the first matchup against the Lakers, they did win, and they won without Lowry and they won without Serge Ibaka. And it was like actually one of the magical moments of the series because this was not a game the Raptors were supposed to win. Nick Nurse, prior to the game, basically said, "I only like 8 people on my team. The rest of these players better step up if they want me to like them too." He didn't say those exact words, but it was close enough. And then the bench actually did show up and play. And that was a pretty remarkable game. And so the Raptors did hold LeBron James to 13 points, and the bench outscored the Lakers by 58 points. And yeah, I mean, this game was, to me, more evenly matched than the games that we've seen the Raptors play against the Clippers, where they've lost both the games against the Clippers. In the first game, also no Lowry, no Ibaka, and OG Anunoby got poked in the eye by Kawhi Leonard in the first minute. I don't know if you remember that, but he was out for the game as well. But in that game, the Raptors were rebounded 66-38 and 20-5 on the offensive glass. And that's just brutal. So they lost that game. And in the second game against the Clippers, I mean, it was more evenly matched on the boards, 50-47, and that kind of looks more like the Raptors game against the Lakers, but they still had just absolutely no intensity, and their defense just broke down against the Clippers. So just strictly based on what's happened so far in the season, it looks like it's only a 1-game sample size for the Lakers, but it looks like the Raptors match up better against the Lakers based on that.
No, I don't think that's a good example, because I think for the Lakers, that was more of like a trap game. I mean, if you think about it, they're like, oh my gosh, who are these scrubs we're about to play against? Their whole team is injured. Like, from their perspective, that's probably how they were viewing it. And they didn't come ready to play. Whereas the Clippers played the next night, they got to see us beat the Lakers and prepare much more, because they saw, oh, wait a minute, these bench players are actually really good. We could possibly lose. We better step up our game. So I feel like that is not a fair. That was one of the first games where we saw the I don't know if you want to call it the uprising of the bench players. And so from that game on, the rest of the league started taking notice of Chris Boucher and Rondé and whoever else stepped up in that game. I kind of forget now. But that was like the first example, you know what I mean, of them all stepping up. And so it was kind of a trap game for the Lakers. So I wouldn't judge that game at all.
Well, I don't know, because it sounds like what you're saying is that the Raptors took the Lakers by surprise. And that's what the Raptors consistently do. They take teams by surprise.
No, that that was like the ultimate surprise. Even we were surprised as fans. We didn't expect them all to do that. That was the first time that we were like, whoa, Chris Boucher. Rondé was being benched up until that point. Like, he was like so far in the doghouse. Like, no. No. I don't agree with you.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that I shouldn't use this game at all to determine a matchup.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes.
And what are you basing your matchup on?
I'm basing it on the whole season of watching the Raptors and the Lakers and the Clippers. What are you basing yours on?
Actual games played.
So am I. Like, cumulatively, the whole season. But I don't think that one game is anything we should judge on. No.
That's fair. I would actually generally make that argument against anyone else as well. It's one game. You can't really do anything based on one game. But it's interesting. I think we all are in agreement that we'd prefer to face the Lakers than the Clippers.
Hey guys, I just want to be a little bit petty once again. That was actually a garbage back-to-back. Like, and the scheduling this year has been terrible. I mean, we played Orlando, I want to say 3 times in the month of November. And as of when the season stopped, we hadn't played Memphis yet. So it's just really, I don't know, weird scheduling.
Yeah, I remember that. I thought the same thing at the time too. I thought we were so screwed over. I was like, I can't believe the league scheduled Lakers and Clippers back to back for the Raptors on a West Coast, obviously West Coast swing. They're already tired, and then you give it back to back, the 2 best teams. Like, I was like, that sucks. But I think that's what made it more exciting when they did beat the Lakers, because 1, because they were undermanned, and 2, because we knew what was coming the next night. So it was great to grab a win before we faced the Clippers. But yeah, I totally agree with you on that. The schedule was so messed up.
Okay, so unfortunately at the moment, all of this really is just a hypothetical. I guess you could call it kind of a prediction. All of us giving our playoff takes in some way if playoffs happen, which I do hope they do. I don't know how. Allison, are you optimistic or pessimistic that the season could resume and complete?
I don't think we're going to have a season. I don't think there's going to be playoffs. I hate to say it.
Well, once again, all of our listeners are hoping you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong too, but
I love how you just go through life hoping you're wrong.
And then when I am, I'm happy.
That's great. I see. Maybe we should learn from Allison, because we're only happy when we're right. So maybe she's onto something. Okay, well, Allison, let's talk about something that will make you happy. We're going to move into our tea time segment. It was Kyle Lowry's birthday this week. Would you like to wish him happy birthday?
I think I did on my Twitter account. I was really happy to see all the love that he got. Actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was trending #1 in Canada, which completely made my day. So yeah, and his birthday's a day after mine, so it's easy to remember.
Oh, well, happy birthday to you too, Allison.
I was 57 last year, and it just occurred to me, I just turned 57, so I didn't get any older.
I didn't know it was your birthday. Happy birthday.
Well, you tend to not make a big deal out of things after you've had a few decades of them.
That's not going to be me when I'm 57. I'm a party. Okay, well, happy birthday to Kyle Lowry, and happy birthday to you too, Allison. Yay, just good times. Other things in tea time, I mean, obviously things are very slow right now, and so we're getting most of our entertainment from the NBA from Serge Ibaka, who seems to have taken on the unofficial mantle of NBA's spokesperson from home, with his How Bored Are You episodes. Just some really good stuff coming from Serge. In particular, his post 2 days ago just saying, I've been complaining about being bored and being stuck at home, and it just occurred to me there are so many people who are ill or who are in the hospital is actually fighting this illness. And so the only thing I should be feeling is grateful. And he's decided he was not going to be complaining anymore. And that, and he just encouraged everyone else to take on that mindset too. And I just thought that was really mature of him. So thanks, Serge. On a less serious note, Serge Ibaka also tweeted, this whole going through this quarantine as a single person has made me wonder about being married, or something to that effect. Essentially, he was like, I wonder if maybe marriage, like what would it be like to do this as a married person? And then he had a lot of people offer to try it out with him.
I'm surprised he's not married, to be honest with you.
Why?
Because it's Serge. I mean, I don't want to get all, but he's considered, based on the response that he got.
My stepmom calls him a very handsome man.
No, even in polls, like when I've seen polls done, like, oh, who's like best looking, like Serge is always one of the top people that people put. So I'm surprised he's single, or maybe he's not single, just not married, but you never know.
Specifically said as a single man going through.
Single.
Yeah, no, he's single. Which I think makes a lot of potential he's an eligible bachelor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little Cameroonian lady who drops off Congolese lady who drops off meals at his house, because on one of the open gym episodes, I think that they showed her dropping off like food that she prepared for him, but she was like a little old lady.
Aw. So who needs a wife if you have someone dropping off food, right?
I think we might miss Sonali.
Let's move into our Around the League segment. We're going to keep this one relatively short. We just got one question for each of us, and it is, which non-Raptors player are you secretly a fan of? Allison, why don't you go ahead?
So I had to narrow the list down significantly, and I didn't want to pick anyone super obvious. So I went with Brandon Ingram. I think he's a really intriguing player. He's averaging 24 points a game this year, which is significantly more than last year. He's shooting a 3-ball. He's dishing some assists too. So he's going to be really fun to watch develop like in the years to come. I think he may have all-star potential.
That's a good choice. I wouldn't have expected you to pick him. I wouldn't have guessed that in a million years. And not because like he's a great player. I don't think I've ever heard you indicate that, you really like him. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, my other choice was Dame, but I can only do one. So
technically you just did two anyway. by listing the second one, so it's all good.
Or Bam.
You might as well your whole list.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Come on, Allison, just give us the whole list. Who else is
Well, Steph, of course. That was it.
Liar. Who else is on your list?
Pat Beverly, because he's such a jerk, and I'm kind of a jerk at heart.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe you like Patrick Beverly.
I do. He's annoying. Everyone hates him. He gets under people's skin. I kind of admire that.
I can't stand him. Oh, guys, this is like the biggest shock in the history of our entire podcast. Whoa.
Okay, and who's your last one, Allison? I know you.
No, that was it. Steph, Pat Beverly, Dame, Bam Adebayo, Brandon Ingram.
Oh, who is that other one? Bam Adebayo?
Yeah. And just to prove how mean I am, I did yell at a senior citizen today for not putting her shopping cart back. So she could go get it, but when it came to being done with it, she couldn't put it back.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's unsurprising that I would like Patrick Beverly then, right?
When you put it that way, yeah, it's not a surprise. So
Okay, so you go ahead. Over to you.
Okay, my turn next. So I only chose one person, and it's somebody who you guys would never expect. It's not it's not LeBron. Even though I'm a fan of him, the key point was secret, right? So it's somebody who. Okay, I want you guys to guess. Actually, I'm just curious if you could like put two and two together on your own.
No, you have
Okay,
to.
are you giving us a hint?
Okay, sure. So he was an all-star.
This year?
Yes.
Well, that's 30 people.
He plays in the Eastern Conference. That narrows it down a lot.
What position?
Oh, if I say this, it's going to give it away. Completely give it away. Okay, how about this? He is on, well, I don't know if they're a rival so much, but a team that I should be rooting against. And I'm not necessarily rooting for his team, but I do like
Jason Tatum?
No.
Wait. It's got to be either Giannis or Embiid.
No. No. Should I just say it?
Yeah, you have to. We both took our guesses and we were both wrong.
Jimmy Butler. I'm a big Butler. I don't know. I just like in the last year, I've been really paying attention to like his YouTube channel and just like what he's doing. And I just think he's so cool. Like he's also really hardworking. I really admire how hard of a worker he is and how dedicated he is. And he's funny. He's got charisma. Like if you actually watch his YouTube videos, he's really entertaining and he's like always cracking jokes and like, I don't know. I kind of like Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
I'm not sure his teammates in Minnesota would have felt the same way.
No, they wouldn't. Probably. He has
or Philly.
So Essie, I really like Jimmy Butler too. I think he's got a really interesting winning mentality. And the fact that he left Philly makes me like him more because I can't stand Philly. So yeah, I can respect your choice.
Ah, that's good. So we actually have something kind of in common that we didn't know about.
There's been a few times I thought that he might actually be a good fit for the Raptors just because I think that he's there to win. I think he plays ball for, you know, the right reasons, which to me is to compete. I think he's a really competitive player. I like him a lot, actually. He was a contender for me on my list.
Ah, yeah. And also too, like about the Minnesota thing, like I heard that was because they weren't as hardworking as him. So to his credit, and I might be wrong, I mean, it's locker room rumors, but I feel like I give him the benefit of the doubt that he, you know, he had a winning mentality and they didn't step up to his level.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll go with mine. I'm not trying to go super obvious, and I think the only reason it's not maybe obvious people might forget about him this year just because he's been injured, but I actually love Steph Curry as a player. I remember watching him and just thinking that he's a step ahead of everyone. He plays like he's already seen the game, like, and he's doing it again. That's how fast he's able to move. It's how he can see the floor. The passes he can make, just the space that he finds. I just think Steph Curry is an outstanding player. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Steph.
Good choice.
You too. Yeah, that's a good choice for you, I think. To be honest, I like Steph Curry on the floor, and this is gonna sound so bad what I'm about to say, but for me, like the players that I'm truly a big fan of, they're very like charismatic and they have like a really fun personality. And I think he seems very nice, but I find that in a lot of his interviews, I end up forwarding through it. Like he's a little on the boring side, and that
he's too wholesome.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he gives really like media trained answers. I think that's the better way to say it. Is like I just find myself having to forward through because he's not saying anything that's like, you know, he's not cracking jokes or he's not like, you know, I don't know, just a little small thing as to why he's not on the top of my list. But he would be on my list in general, just because like the way he plays and the way he like, you know, encourages his teammates and he's fun on the floor and all his dances and stuff. But like, I don't know. I'm always attracted to how they are off the court as well, in terms of like their interviews and, you know, their YouTube channels and all that stuff. So for me, that's his only like thing that I'm not really, you know.
So what you're saying is he's more of a highlight reel than he is a meme.
Yes, that's exactly it. He doesn't give us any meme moments or anything. Even Jimmy Butler had one the other day when, was it Kate Biernes asked him, what do you think of the Raptors? And he was like, have they beat the Heat yet? Or something like that. Yeah.
Ooh, them are fighting words. Okay, well, that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing all of your, you know, secret non-Raptor favorite players. This is a lot of fun today. I hope that all of you listeners, I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you like this episode, make sure that you give us a 5-star rating on whatever app you're listening to us to, and be sure to tell your friends about us. You can leave a review. Follow at Raptor Queens. We're on Twitter, Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. We'll be back next week with some more Raptor talk. And thank you all so much for joining us. Bye. Go Raptors.
Woohoo!
Bye.